Hi, I'm Paul Pasulka, Ivy Masters Learning Center and ivymasters.com. Today we're going to look at Test 5, Section 2, number 41, which reads, which choice most effectively sets up the examples in the following sentence? One thing you got to pay attention to is, usually your answer choices, there's no question. Answer choice A is no change, and then you have your inserts, and you're just picking the one that is best in the sentence. Whenever it asks you a question like this one does, make sure you pay careful attention to what the question's asking. It's asking about what sets up examples in the following sentences, so what you have to do is you've got to read the sentences after. So that's one thing. The other thing is, even though it asks you to read the sentences after, sometimes it's actually more helpful to read the sentences before. So you do want to make sure you get the context before as well. But the question's asking about setting up the examples in the following sentences. We've got to pay attention to those. So let's see what's going on in the sentences after. What we get is non-profit enterprises such as the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project have begun to fill the void created by staff losses at newspapers and magazines. Enterprising freelance reporters, newly funded by nonprofits, make extensive use of social media, blah, 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 blah. So at this point, you would have read the beginning of this passage, and it's about investigative journalists. And so what we get just before it is, while worrisome, the decline of traditional print media need not entail the end of investigative journalism. So it doesn't have to. So what is the decline of traditional print media? That's like newspapers are not selling as much as they would before. Why? Probably because everything's online now. Same thing with magazines. Wherever people get their news, that is printed. So that's what we get in the before. But we do want to pay attention to the after. And it seems to be in the context of, keep in mind we're talking about investigative journalists here, is that nonprofits are hiring these investigative journalists. Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project and enterprising freelance reporters, newly funded nonprofits, make extensive use of social media. It sounds like these are all fora where investigative journalists could do their work. So we need a sentence that bridges that gap, but remember the question's asking about what comes after. We're paying attention to particularly what comes after. Answer choice A, although many newsrooms have reduced their staff, some still employ investigative journalists. Notice what comes after is not talking about newsrooms employing investigative journalists. It's about other places employing investigative journalists. Answer choice B, investigative journalism also declined between 1930s and 1950s, only to be revived in 1960s. But then what do we get as the examples after? We get different places that are employing investigative journalists that were not, maybe, that are making up the difference for the decline in newspapers and print news. Answer choice C, according to the Pew Research Center, more people get their national and international news from the internet than from newspapers. But that does not set up the examples in the following sentences. The examples in the following sentences, once again, being other places where investigative journalists can find work. So answer choice D winds up being our correct answer. Indeed, recent years have witnessed innovative adjustments to changing times. So investigative journalists don't have work. They look for work elsewhere at these nonprofits and as freelance reporters and using social media to get their following and to raise funds and do their work. Answer choice D is your correct answer. Thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, you could click like, share it with someone who has trouble with writing language when it asks you a question. Pay attention to the question that's being asked. This is more of a critical reading, a reading comprehension type question. If there's any question you'd like to see listed from any official PSAT or SAT or ACT, leave that in the comments. I'd be happy to shoot a video on it. And click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Have a great day.